I'm going to try to get everybody caught up on what I was doing here. I just had fallen behind making videos. So we're going to finish up my configuration. A lot of things went on behind the scenes, took a lot of time. So I'm going to start with the ESC. And depending on if that takes more than 2 or 3 hours to finish, I'll add some of the lesser subjects in, and then we'll try to break it at 20 minutes, and then we'll go on to the next subject in the next video. So, not much information came with the ESC. Couldn't find a lot on the internet. Knew I was connecting it into this connector right here, and that was about it. I could see servos 1 through 4 in there, and a receive for UART 8 pin, and a ground and a bat. Current I didn't pay much attention to. But when I went out looking for information, the only place I really found anything on it was on the T-Motor site, and this is all sorts of salesman type brochure. It's a nice, pretty, multicolored there for salesmen to hand out to people, and it does tell a little bit about it. This looks exactly like what I got. This feature section is the only thing I found particularly useful. This let me know that it is BHeli32. This also let me know that it was one-shot 125 compatible, one-shot 42, and multi-shot compatible. D-Shot compatible, it looks like, up to D-Shot 1200. And then it does speak about that 10 volts again, used to power peripherals. So that's where I finally found some information. This was after I got the thing running. Because all of this stuff is extra additional stuff for that ESC. Technically, it is PWM compatible. And if you just put it on, plug it in correctly, serial 1 to serial 1, serial 2, serial 2, serial 3 to serial 3, serial 4 to serial 4, if that is your motor order, then you will be fine. You won't have any of the fancy features, I don't think, but you'll be fine. If you want to go a step deeper, you can start enabling the BLHeli and the D-Shot and telemetry and all that stuff and have more. Now, I haven't done any BLHeli ESCs on a single ESC for an airplane yet. All my ESCs have been PWM so far. But I imagine you would have the same exact configuration on a single ESC airplane. But I think these 4-in-1 ESCs, they just got to catering to the drone racers who just like to play with everything so deeply that they, I think, have gone overboard with what you can do. You don't need to do it, but you can do it if you like. That gives them nervous drone pilots at a race something to do for 15-20 minutes. Lets them mess up their ESC really badly and just barely get it fixed 30 seconds before the go signal, and I guess it's fun to watch. Anyway, one last thing I'd want to speak about before I go on to the details is right here, not where I'm clicking, right here, you can see, won't this come up large? Okay, I can't mouse over this item and then go over to where it's coming up over here and point to, if you look at that, oh, I can point right here and you can see it on the big one. See right there next to that mounting hole there it says 1, up here it says 2, down here it says 3 and 4. That has nothing to do with motors or anything. That's the sections, we'll look at it as that's the sections of this ESC that are important. But, so if this was flipped over like this, oh, there's a number right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That just happens to be the way Betaflight orders their motors. So if you put a quad frame down, you're going to fly Betaflight on it. Yep. Cool. You're cool. Your back right motor, number 1, will be number 1. Right front will be number 2. Left rear will be 3. That'll be 4. Sweet. Wires all coming out of this going the correct place. If you're using iNav, I don't remember what the motor ordering on iNav is. Okay, let me switch this up. If you're using Arducopter, that motor ordering is actually right front, left rear, left front, right rear. And boy, trying to take the wires from the position on this to the correct motor. In other words, you're going to take these 3 wires right here and you're going to take them across the ESC to this motor over here. That's never going to work. And of course they knew that, and there's ways around that. But as far as the 1, 2, 3, 4 in this connector right here, which, can we see it labeled here? No. Nope. Can't see it labeled here. It's actually labeled right underneath there, but you can't see it on this silk screen. Okay. When it says S1, whatever it says underneath here for each of the 1 through 4, it's referencing 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see, to be able to hook my number 1 motor, my S1 Servo 1 RC1 PWM output to this thing, because I didn't know at that time how I could reverse the motor order, change the motor orders around and stuff, which you can't inside this ESC. That's why I couldn't find it inside this ESC. You can change the motor direction, but you can't change, well, there's actually a way with a mask to change the order, but we won't get that deep. So I hooked my RC channel 1 up to the second pin on this. So I hooked it to these 3 that way. I hooked my RC channel 2 up to the 3rd pin in here, so it was going to this section, and so on. This I hooked to the 4th pin in here, and the motor back here, my RC4, I actually hooked up to the number 1 pin in here. I was just trying to figure it out to do it because I had not yet found out how to do it inside here. I hadn't paid much attention on how to do it inside Arducopter. It's super simple inside Arducopter. Everything is once you learn it one time. Just got to go through that first time of learning it, and then it's really easy after that. So again, I think iNav starts out their motor ordering back here I just threw up a flight controller and threw iNav on it, and here it is. So it's the same as Betaflight 1, 2, 3, 4. But it can vary from firmware manufacturer to firmware manufacturer. So let's go in and look at the important points now. To get that, okay, that escape. Oh man, it's killing me. That's what the ESC key is on a computer that I worked with for 50 years. Escape. The ESC, electrical speed controller, can be put on and work perfectly without doing any of this, to tell you the truth. It'll just be getting PWM signals on RC channels 1 through 4, and it'll be putting out whatever it's supposed to on channels 1 through 4. I think it'll have to be calibrated, and I'm not quite sure how you do that. But if you want it to work to its maximum, you're going to have to come in here, and the first thing you're going to have to do before this firmware is going to utilize it, you're going to have to set servo underscore BLH underscore auto to a 1 to enable BL heli pass through. That's the second it's going to start working on BL heli commands through those wires instead of a PWM signal. So that's the instant I jumped out here, went into the BL heli suite, which I'd had for a while, and said, all right, I can connect on the same COM port as my flight controller. You have to shut down the connection to the flight controller, as you see up here in the upper left hand corner, and as you can see, it doesn't work. Oh man. So there I was again after turning on pass-through in the BL heli auto command. There I was. Can't connect. No ESCs. Can't. At this time I knew nothing. And so after a little digging and stuff, I found the fix was as simple as a little battery power. That's all that was lacking. Of course, the ESCs don't backfeed power to, the flight controller doesn't backfeed power from the USB connection down to the ESC. The ESC supplies power from the battery up to the flight controller. So of course it would have to have power. And then after it was powered, wow, look at that. It popped up for me for the first time, and I went, ooh, ooh, ooh. I now know a little bit about my ESC. I didn't know nothing at that time. Then, of course, I came over here, played with this. And you guys know, so far, I still can't get this. Let's see if it works now. You have to close the connection to go over to motors. I understand. I have no props on. Nope. They still won't run from this menu. I have no idea why. Everywhere else, they're fine. So anyway, I played with this software for a while there, and I don't find much I need to do in here except for this motor reverse, which if you look at all the ESCs here eventually You can see I had to reverse the first 3 channels, and that was it. By putting them on the ESC the way I did with the wiring, that all of that was ready to go from the start. This minimum throttle and maximum throttle has been put in there since then by me playing with the platform. I didn't even know those had been changed. We'll get into that in a second. I don't know about this LED control or not. I did change this musical note configuration because it puts some musical notes in this portion of each ESC because I was playing with them. I did not flash them. They seem to be flashed to the current version. I didn't even verify they were BLE. I was afraid to do any of that because can't find a manual on any of this either. How does this work? I can find a video that details how each one of these individual items works and how to set it and stuff like that, but I can't find anything on the detail of how this interface works. So I just sat here and played with it until I pretty much sort of understand it. I don't understand anything over here. I don't understand this, so I'll just leave it alone, leave it to whatever this is set to. Like I say, for some reason this will not work for me. So I don't need to do anything else in here myself. I will never need to play in here. We'll just leave it at the defaults. I don't think that'll be any problem for me. So we're disconnected, so we can shut this down. Technically, we can shut this back down because we don't need voltage anymore. Other things on the ESC. Underneath servo _ BLH, there's a lot of things. Bing. This was the only one we were talking about to enable it. That's what allowed, that pass-through is what allowed, well, and having battery voltage on it is what allowed this suite to work for me for the first time. The rest of these things down through here have to do with, I didn't change much here. I have 12 poles on these motors. I did change that from 14 to 12. And I did drop the telemetry rate in half because that was recommended to me. The other things that can be done here, I'm not really doing. Let's see. Over in Mott, PWM type. Here is where you set what PWM type the motors are using. Motor PWM type. I chose D-Shot 600. I didn't go for the full 12 that it can do. I went with a little conservative 600, and also I'll show you general guidelines in that thing I was sort of following, that build I was sort of following. So I've got motor type PWM as D-Shot. That right there is when it switched. Now we got bidirectional D-Shot going on. I think that made things a little bit faster. Got another servo function. Servo _ servo D-Shot ESC 1. Mine are BL Heli 32 D-Shot. So now I've told it the D-Shot type. So see that setting that motor PWM type, it has to do with this right here, where you could be set right here. Okay, so this is if you want to enable this communication on outputs that are not part of the multi-copter's motor group, which is set up here. And there was a D-mask. When I was following that build, he had to use this right here to reverse some of his motors. So you can reverse motors right here by just checking what channel they were on. So I could have come in here and went 1, 2, 3 instead of doing it in BL Heli Suite. I didn't want to do that. Well, I didn't know it existed at that time, but the build I was following, he had to come in here and reverse some of his motors here. Okay, so now then I'm going to bring the platform back up in. I'm going to power it down. I just did. I'm going to bring it back up. Let me see if these are all gone. Yes, they are. Messengers are all gone now. Fresh. And we'll connect. And in these messages, you're going to be able to see RC out initializing. There we go. Quit. Okay, I'm going to grab this real quick. I'm going to grab all of that real quick, and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that into a word processor so I can get away from that, because that flight controller keeps putting new lines in it and scrolling down the stuff I want to show you. Here it is, RC out, D-Shot 600 on outputs 1 through 6. PWM on 7 through 13. There you go. So that shows you we've got D-Shot 600 communications between the flight controller and the ESC on channels 1 through 6. I don't have anything else to connect to any of those channels, so it doesn't bother me at all. If you don't see that in this message area, you probably not got it all correct yet. Okay, what else can I say about these ESCs? They don't require calibration. That's why a lot of people have been messaging me the last 2 years about ESC calibration problems, and I'd only worked with the PWMs, and they all calibrated for me. But if you had BL Heli, even a single BL Heli ESC on a platform, you wouldn't have been able to calibrate it. Well, you might if it's in PWM mode. But if it's in BL Heli mode, you ain't going to be able to calibrate it. Well, you're going to have trouble, in my humble opinion. And that could be what the trouble was with some of those people. So that's a little more about the 4-in-1 ESC and how I configured it in the software and got everything going. We forgot one thing. We forgot to talk about we forgot to talk about telemetry that's coming out of that. I hooked it to, on that flight controller, I connected to this connector, and you remember it had a receive pin for telemetry, and that's UART 8. So for me, UART 8 right here is serial 5 in Ardu. Let's see, RIL5. So you're going to see serial 5 is set to 16, which means that's ESC telemetry coming out of that ESC up into that flight controller. I haven't found any information on what baud rate to set or any serial 5 options to set. I don't know that I'm getting all my telemetry. I don't know what the list of telemetry items are. I can't find them anywhere. What I do see or did see was some things over here in the OSD information. ESC amps, ESC RPM, ESC temp, 3 items. When I look at this right here, I'm going to go ahead and power up my RC transmitter, and I'm going to put some power back on the platform. Oops, come on, push the button. And the monkey.
Welcome to OpenTX.
And the monkey pushes the button. I haven't seen much telemetry yet. I'll have to go over and set ESC RPM and something and see what happens. Set some of these when I start playing with the OSD. These aren't really pertinent to getting off the ground in the phase I am with this, but I do want to cover all the information that I could on that ESC, and that does have to do with telemetry. And to tell you the God's awful truth, I have not figured it out completely yet. Don't know that I'll ever figure it out completely, but I'd like to have just a little bit more understanding of what's coming over. But there's no manuals, documentation, nobody's doing any videos on it. If you can find any, please send me a link. So that's all I've got for the ESC. I'm going to go compile this video, edit it a little bit, and see how long it is and make a decision on what I will do in this video or if I will break this video here. Yikes, I ran over. Thank you, bye.